Welcome to the webinar on integrating e-commerce and extending UPS WorldShip to optimize your shipping. We are going to get started on the content. Just a few housekeeping details. All of the attendees are in listen-only mode from the voice perspective. If you do have questions, you can submit them through the GoToWebinar toolbar tool, and we'll answer those questions as we go, and we'll have some time at the end of the session for any questions that we don't address. Today's agenda, we're going to just give a quick overview of the company, Oz Development. We tend to spend a fair bit of time illustrating use cases through customer case studies. So hopefully that gives you some examples that other customers have had success on where you might be able to implement something similar to create some value in your organization. We'll then talk about what extensions we have in OzLink to streamline UPS WorldShip. We'll do a demo, and as I said earlier, we'll finish up with Q&A. So the company, Oz Development, we've been around over 13 years. We've been a long-time partner with UPS, and we have a number of different solutions. I'll step through the different OzLink solutions for UPS in a second. But really, essentially, any customer that's using UPS, we feel we have an opportunity to help improve that business. And it really is proven with thousands of successful customers, small entrepreneurial customers, as well as large Fortune 500 customers. You can see a few of the logos here that we work with. And then more recently, we've won a number of awards. Earlier this year, we won a Pacesetter Award. It's one of the fastest private growing companies in Massachusetts. So some of that recognition we're quite proud of as a company. We're based out of Westboro, which is just outside of Boston. All of our development implementation support is here in the building in the U.S. So the OzLink for UPS solutions, we have 4 different solutions, and I'll start talking about them from the bottom left up to the top right. So OzLink for UPS at the bottom left is a rating tool. It's a free solution, typically used by telesales, telemarketing people on the phone. They might be answering a customer question about how much something is going to cost to ship, how quickly you could get there. So it provides basic rating, time in transit, some address validation capabilities. It can be activated right from the Oz Development site for those members of your team. The next solution, OzLink for UPS Plus, is a more advanced rating solution. It provides some additional capabilities, things like side-by-side rating between negotiated and list rates, multi-piece, also supports some special services like SurePost. There's also an integration with Excel, which is a very elegant way to batch rate, batch ship, and batch track large number of orders straight from an Excel file. It's what we call a self-serve solution, so that can be activated right from the website as well, and that starts at $16 a month, and there's a multi-user for $39 a month. The top 2 solutions are shipping automation solutions, really focused on integrating WorldShip and streamlining that process. OzLink for UPS Pro provides out-of-the-box integration with both NetSuite or QuickBooks. So if you use either of those accounting systems, you can streamline shipping with WorldShip. And the way they work is with OzLink Pro, the order gets pulled real-time from the accounting system, so either QuickBooks or NetSuite, written to WorldShip. You process the shipment in WorldShip, and then OzLink writes back the costs and the tracking number back into the accounting system. This also is a self-serve, so that can be activated. And we have customers who get going, 10 minutes, they're active and running and getting that benefit of integration, real-time integration with their accounting system. Today's focus is mostly around, really focused on OzLink for UPS Custom, which is the most advanced UPS WorldShip solution that OzLink provides. And there's a whole set of extensions and options that can be deployed for customers. It also can be integrated to virtually any back-end system, both, and we'll talk about which is some of the more common ones we run into. And that could be an e-commerce ERP system. It could be an e-commerce accounting system. It could be a legacy system. We'll talk more about that. Typically, the customers are a little higher volume. So maybe 50 packages up to, we have customers running, a couple thousand a day for sure, but a little higher volume. What they were doing is they're shipping out promotional materials, so like a mug and hats to their sales team for promotional items. And what they were doing is they're setting that up in Salesforce, and they were leveraging an marketing automation tool called Pardot. Now that originally those tasks were created in Salesforce, that then the fulfillment team would then use those tasks in Salesforce to identify, okay, we're going to ship out 15 mugs and 28 hats, those sort of things. And they're having to go through each task, update Salesforce, go to WorldShip, process that shipment. It was very intensive in terms of labor, easily make a mistake. So what we did with Ozlink is we integrated Salesforce with WorldShip, and we created a batch process. So they would set up a promotional campaign that said, we're going to ship out, we have the sales reps can pick the type of, maybe a mug, maybe also have a, golf kit that might include some golf balls and a hat that goes with that. So they had pre-packaged promotional items that the sales rep could pick. Based on that, Ozlink goes in, looks at that package type, promotional type, and does a batch process and produces the shipping labels sorted for picking by those batches. So they go a set of labels associated with it to the mugs, another one associated with the golf kit, and now they can go and Salesforce gets updated automatically with the tracking number, the tasks that automatically completed, the WorldShip label, the shipping label gets produced, and they can really streamline their process dramatically. They ended up increasing their process throughput by about 28% and saving $10,000, because as part of that, on the address correction fees, as part of that batch process, we would also look at the address correction and look up the addresses against the UPS API for address validation.
Hey, Brian, we have two questions that have come in through the chat in regard to Salesforce specifically. One is, can we get a tracking status for information back in this case, Salesforce, or back in that ERP once those packages have been shipped?
Yeah, in Salesforce, we do quite a bit with Salesforce. We'll update that tracking back into, it could be a standard field in Salesforce, or quite often customers end up customizing and having custom objects specific to their business, and we can update those as well.
Well, and the custom objects is actually the second question that came in is, in our Salesforce account, we've added a series of custom fields. Can Ozlink use those custom fields? And I think you sort of started to answer that with Salesforce integration. It's very, very common that people will have either custom objects or custom fields set up, and Ozlink is certainly flexible to work with those. It's very common on the Salesforce side.
And there's another customer we're working with now where they have, they're fulfilling, they have customers and they fulfill promotional items based on behalf of their customer, and it's fairly unautomated. So they get an email from that customer which comes in as an order. They use those emails to determine in Salesforce, set up a fulfillment in Salesforce. So in this case, what we're doing is looking at adding a field for order status in Salesforce, and we'll just run through all the open orders and create the label, update that order status, put the tracking number back in. Again, that's a custom object they've created, and now they don't have to deal with any of the emails to sort of track. What they're doing is if the email was unread, they know they hadn't fulfilled it yet, and they're doing a lot of cut and paste back and just prone to error. So there's another example where just streamlining that process and not both increasing productivity, but also increasing accuracy and speed as well. So with Auslink Custom, it can be integrated to really any type of back-end system. On the left are some of the e-commerce applications we've been successful with, and on the right are your traditional accounting. You can see on the right it really ranges from large enterprise SAP and Oracle type applications to applications that more of a small business might use, QuickBooks or Peachtree, which is now called Sage 50. We do see more demand on the left side as e-commerce is expanding and integrating things with new applications like Groupon and Magento as people are driving more e-commerce orders.
And here's another another example where customers are taking orders into their ERP system. And one of the things they want to do is, as those orders are coming into the system, perform a bit of an address validation or verification, even down to a residential versus commercial address. So in many cases, if we have orders coming from an external source, whether that's an e-commerce platform or maybe a third party, we can use Auslink to go and validate against UPS's address verification API. Is that address we're about to put in our ERP system valid? Is it residential? Is it commercial? And the simple end result of a process like this is cutting down on service delays by shipping a package out and having it not be delivered on time, as well as cost. The cost of an address correction fee is something that can add up pretty quickly. So in addition to shipping automation, which we've talked a bit about today, the idea of improving e-commerce customer experience and delivery efficiency can also be performed, as in this example, through some address validation.
One of the more interesting extensions we implemented probably about 18 months ago for the first time, and since then we've done it many times over, is integrating in with a weather API. So we have a customer, in this case they ship insects, and they're shipping them out to pet stores. And one of the challenges they had was when they ship them out, if they don't arrive live at the customer, they're not usable. So given the growth of exotic pets, people buying things like snakes and reptiles and those sort of animals, they need to be fed, and they eat live animals only, live insects only. So this customer wanted to streamline and improve the arrival rate of live animals. So what we did is at ship time, we integrated a weather API which would say, hey, at this destination, based on this customer you're shipping to, here's the temperature. And that allowed them to automate the selection both of the UPS service. So maybe instead of having it sit, go ground and sit in a truck over the weekend, they might do an expedited service. They also used it to determine some additional packaging options to really improve that sort of arrival rate with live insects. And since then, we've done it with a number of different, really any perishable good that's being shipped. We've done it for someone who does plants. We have a case study later for a plant provider, meats and foods, those sort of things that are temperature controlled. Wine is another one which we've done an implementation around. So anything that has, we want to sort of make a decision to either, again, packaging or timing where it might spoil and increase that customer satisfaction, return rate, reduce the spoiler rate is a useful scenario to think about this in.
Great. So here's another example that we see more and more these days is an integration with Groupon. So we have many customers that have their traditional e-commerce markets, maybe through their website, through different sales channels, but this concept of a flash sale through somebody like Groupon is creating sort of some added burden for the warehouse staff. I've got a large influx of orders in a short period of time and a very time-sensitive processing requirement for that sale. So in the case of Groupon, what we've done for a number of companies is done an interface to a solution that Groupon offers its sellers called Commerce Interface. in which we can batch process a group of orders. So if we think about when we're selling on Groupon, we're typically selling a single SKU, so I might know that all of these orders are for the same SKU, so I know things like the weight and packaging that I'm going to use. And in this scenario, what we'll do is we'll take that group of orders and batch process them and produce a single page packing slip and shipping label like you see on the right side of the screen here. The concept is in my warehouse, again, with this being sort of a flash sale, something that's not a typical daily process for my warehouse, I can then take these single sheets of paper, go out into the warehouse, pick my product, peel the shipping label out of the bottom of the form here, put the packing slip inside the box, and seal that package. And in a one-step, simple process, fulfill that order and get the information that Groupon's going to require back into Groupon, so I can get that tracking status information back into Groupon and not have a highly disruptive process for my warehouse team. So it's a pretty unique way to handle high volumes of orders like this, and this could be applied to Groupon or many other sites, but Groupon certainly being a very common e-commerce platform in which we see these types of sales happening.
And they're expanding. They added a Groupon Goods, and that's one of their faster growing areas, so they're investing a lot in that and recruiting suppliers to fulfill those goods. And a couple, they have a vendor guide which has this pack slip, so we've gone through that certification. And then for orders that come in, let's say today's Thursday, their vendor guide says they have to get it shipped out tomorrow by 4 or 5. So that productivity, meeting that requirement from a Groupon perspective becomes critical. The other thing is we have a customer that uses this where they're shipping, it's the same item, but there's different colors. They do headphones. They have red, green, blue headphones. So same SKU and weight, so we can do the batch, but we sort those pack slips by product color. So that's, again, streamlines their pick process, so they can go say, okay, I got the 15 green, and pick those out effectively. And often what in that warehouse, they may get 100, 125 orders on a normal day. Now they run a Groupon event and they double that order volume. So being able to streamline that becomes critical without adding really any extra staff to get those orders out. There was a question about the recording, so we will record it and we'll post the slides as well. We'll send those out to everybody. This next slide talks about the combo pack slip, and the Groupon is an example of that, where if you have those weights defined in the system or in a file somewhere, we can leverage that to do a batch process. Very common way you're doing a large set of e-commerce orders. And producing this, on the right you can see branded pack slip. You can have your logo on it with the UPS label on the bottom. And we have a customer that drop ships across 5 different e-commerce channels. So they hit basically a batch button, a go button on Oslink. Oslink goes through, based on that sales channel, produces a different branded pack slip for each of the sales channel and the UPS label, and just prints them all out. So they don't really have to worry about that. Underneath the covers, there's different ways to communicate and the way they get those orders. Some is a CSV. Actually, one is Groupon. And one's their own Volusion site, but they don't have to worry about that. They basically go and they print that out. Oslink takes care of the different channels, communication methods, produces the right branded pack slip, and they can focus on really getting those orders out the door.
Another example, Brian, or another use case for that form is return services. So we have a customer that sells swimwear, and oftentimes when people are ordering, they might order 2 or 3 different sizes or different styles and get those home and figure out which ones they like best, but there's a high level of returns. So you can also use this sort of combination form and generate a return services label that could go in the box with the shipment out to your customer to make it easy for them to send products back to you.
So this is the customer I was talking about where they have different channels. They started with us doing that Groupon batch process with the Groupon branded pack slip, and they had such success with that, they came back less than 3 months later and said, we have our own Volusion site, so we'd like to be able to batch process and get those orders out. And then based on that success, and they sort of fixed that pain point and got the productivity they needed in-house, and they came back to us again and said, well, we actually get a CSV file through from AAA. And so we process that and it's through the batch process. Since then, they've also added Whoop, which is a deal type site, and I think Amazon as well. So they've added 2 more channels to this process. And at a high level, the person in the warehouse doesn't need to know the details, the technical details, or even the packing slip requirement details for each of these channels. They just hit the go button. The branded pack slips and shipping services get selected, and they can execute and focus on getting the orders out.
So here's another sort of extension to the UPS shipping process that we see very, very commonly today, and it's the idea of a branded email notification. So many of us are familiar with WorldShip's capability to send an email to my customer, but some companies will say, I want to add more to that email experience. I want to send an email to my customer that not only has their tracking information, but also has my branding, my look, my feel, my logo, and maybe even some promotional information, to try to entice that customer to come back to my site. So here's just a real simple example of one of those emails that can be triggered automatically by Auslink every time we ship a package. And so this could be an email off to my end customer. We've seen other scenarios in service industries where maybe I'm sending parts out to a technician that are going to be deployed, and this is a notification to that technician so they know parts are on their way. But the concept here is let's protect branding, let's leverage this customer touch point and support our brand and try to drive customers back to the website for upsell opportunities. And this is a nice, simple add-on that we see customers using every single day today.
It's one of the more common ones, especially if they're on a what I call sort of more legacy type system, whether it's GP or Sage or even QuickBooks. Very common with QuickBooks customers as well. And then as customers are expanding their sales channels, shipping on behalf of, in this case, we're showing some examples, shipping on behalf of a large retailer, being able to produce that branded pack slip automatically at ship time. So, they're shipping on behalf of JCPenney, Sears. Having that person in the warehouse remembering they have to print that out, and potentially we had a customer, a prospect we were speaking to who would print out the wrong one, and they'd sent it out to the customer. The consumer was confused, thought maybe that their card had been compromised, and that caused a big issue for them relative to their retail customer. So being able to, with Auslink, we can look at that order coming across from the accounting ERP system and automatically produce the right pack slip based on that customer, the large retailer that they're shipping on behalf of. Again, just streamlining that process. And the more types of sort of notes that are on that ship station where people have to remember it, we're trying to eliminate those so the person can focus on productivity, get those out, and also for peak periods when you're bringing in temporary staff to accommodate that growth as we look to the fall here, and making sure that you don't have to spend a ton of time training them on these details, that tribal knowledge that sometimes exists in the warehouse, trying to really make that streamlined and focused. Being able to get them productive within 15 minutes or 30 minutes of arriving.
So here's another couple of examples of some extensions that we can leverage, and it's around time and transit optimization. And there's kind of 2 scenarios that we see here. One scenario is my customer came to my website or to whatever my Salesforce is and says, I need this package delivered in a certain time. In our example on the left side of the screen here, it's a 2-day delivery commitment. Well, we can configure Auslink so when we're getting ready to process the order, we actually check with UPS and determine how many days in transit is it if I were to ship this package ground. And the idea here is if ground will get it there on time, let's go ahead and automatically switch the service level to ground and not have the extra shipping charges of a second-day air service. So that's one scenario that we see. We see that a lot of times around the holidays, with customers selling items and having commitments before certain holidays. let's check and see what the time and transit requirements are and potentially downgrade a service level if possible. The opposite is also true. We may have a situation where a customer is placing an order. One scenario that I think about is a company that sells bread. So it's a perishable item, and they guarantee delivery within a certain time window. So depending on their schedule in the bakery, they may expect that this particular bread is going to be done on Wednesday. Well, they're late and it's not done until Thursday. But when they ship it to their customer, they guarantee delivery for Friday. So we may tell Auslink to look at a delivery date within the order management system and say, I need to upgrade this service level in order to meet my delivery commitment for my customer. So there's kind of two options there when we start to think about time in transit. One is, can I save money and get packages delivered on time, potentially using a service like Ground as opposed to an express second day, 3-day type service? And then also just making sure I'm meeting delivery commitments and potentially upgrading a service automatically to meet that requirement.
Malibu Boats, a customer, they run GP. They manufacture recreational boats for consumers. And one of the service commitments they had, and then what they found is they had a lot of owners in the upper Midwest and the Northeast where the boating season is quite short. So they made a commitment to deliver parts. If the boat's out of commission, it needs to be repaired within 2 days, because they didn't want that owner who may have spent quite a bit on that boat lose a week of that season, which is short. So what we did in this case is we leveraged that time in transit module to look at, where is the customer and what was the time commitment for the delivery, and upgrade and optimize that process, and also streamline just their basic shipping process. And based on that automation, meeting that customer satisfaction, they cut down their shipping errors by about 20%, and at the same time met that customer satisfaction and increased the utilization of their customers' assets in their boats. And then the other very common sort of automation we do is around business rules. So picking and selecting attributes of that order. Could be an attribute, the value of the order, the destination, to pick the right UPS service and option. So, customer that's maybe shipping wholesale and, to consumers, for their wholesale orders, they want the charges written back. For their consumer orders, that was handled up front in the e-commerce. So rules, being able to automate those types of things. Jewelry or high electronics customers, they want to put insurance on orders that are over a certain value, and being able to automate those sort of things. So really, there's any attribute of shipment, the customer, destination that can be used to automate the selection process. We had a customer that ships wine into Texas, where there's some local regulations that has to be signed for by an adult. So being able to look at that and automatically put adult signature type service required on without having that person in the warehouse remember and be selecting that on the WorldShip side.
And I think the key to this one is, these are some example rules. If I were to look at it and at a high level, what I think about is there a decision that I'm relying on a person in my warehouse to make? They may be looking, as Brian said, at the type of items that I'm shipping, or the value of an order, or the day of the week. If there are decisions that are being made by a person, let's eliminate that so that I can have the software make that decision for me, and it makes it easier for me to bring in temporary staff, or even have somebody that's not typically working in the warehouse maybe fill in and help, but still make sure my commitment to my customer is met efficiently. All right, so we wanted to show you just one example of an integration with WorldShip with a bit of what we would call an extension to the WorldShip platform. So in my case, I have my accounting system, which is QuickBooks here, and my sort of business challenge is getting the right products in the shipment out to my customer. So if I look at this sales order here, I have items number 5001 and 5002. And I use these item numbers very specifically because they are generic. And what we're thinking about is when I go out into the warehouse, let's say maybe I'm a sneaker retailer or something like that, where I've got lots of square boxes that all look very similar, but those items might have different colors, sizes, and if I'm not really paying attention, it's very, very easy for me to send the wrong thing to my customer. So what we've enabled here is what we call a packing verification process. So if I'm the person out in the warehouse, I want to make sure I get my orders shipped to the right address, but make sure the right products go into the shipment as well. So if I go ahead and I either scan or type my order number into Auslink, what Auslink's going to do is it's going to present me with a packing verification window. So here I'm using a simple Bluetooth scanner or even a scanner plugged into my computer, and before I put something in the box, I'm going to scan it. And as I scan that item, Auslink's going to verify that, yes, this item's part of the order and the quantity that I'm scanning is valid. So now if I go ahead and I scan something that's not part of the order, the solution's going to come up. It's going to give me a quick warning message to say, wait a minute, I've got something that's not part of this particular order. And I can continue on through, and I can scan items, and I can scan them in any order that I want. And this process can be configured to support multiple packages. So in my case, I've decided that I've got 2 box sizes. So those are the products that I'm going to put in box size 1. And I don't have a physical scale connected, so it's going to ask me for the weight. But if I had a scale connected, I could bring the weight directly over from that scale. But even if I did things like, hey, I accidentally tried to put an extra 1 in the box, it's going to come up and it's going to let me know that information. So what I've done here is I've made sure that the products that I'm shipping are not only the right products, they're the right quantities. And now, if I want to go over and send that package over to my UPS WorldShip software, I can close my second package. And Auslink is now going to send the information to UPS WorldShip, and that's going to include things like the shipping address information, the service level information that's going to come out of UPS WorldShip. But in this scenario, since I packed a couple of boxes, it's also going to send the package information to WorldShip. And now all I need to do as the person in the shipping department is hit process shipment. UPS is going to print out my shipping labels for me. And now I can return information back over to QuickBooks real time. So mine's currently configured to return to QuickBooks the service level that was used for shipping, just in case any of those time and transit business rules were put into place. My shipping weight, cost, date, and tracking numbers. Now all of this information is also available for the email notification module. So if I want to send an email to the customer and let them know their order's on the way and there's 2 packages included as part of that shipment, I can do that. If I'm shipping off to a major retailer and that retailer requires an advance ship notice, all of that information we collected as part of that packing process can be leveraged to meet that particular retailer's requirements. So this was just one example, and it was a little bit different from some of the examples that we've used so far in the case studies, but the idea here is leveraging a packing verification to ensure that my customer receives the products that they had ordered.
Thanks, Troy. And we have just a few more minutes to finish up, and we'll go through a couple more examples. So, Growers Exchange is a customer, one of the more recent implementations where we use the Weather API. So they get orders in eCommerce. Their platform that they use is Volusion. And in addition to incorporating the weather, we also look up, they have a database of, is this, based on this order, do we have the inventory available to fulfill it? And then we also look up a database from based on the USDA plant hardiness zone, which says where these types of things, what season and the temperatures where they'll grow best. And they take orders in, starting towards the end of the winter through the spring. Those orders are coming in to be shipped out based on some of that hardiness zone data. So then once they release that, now they run a batch process, and with OzLink, it goes in, checks the weather, checks the inventory, and releases those orders. And they now take those and have dramatically streamlined their process for picking those orders out of the warehouse, which is a set of greenhouses. Actually, they go back through and get those orders. They bring them up to a packing area, pack them up, and ship them out. So that's probably the most recent example that we've done, and adding on to that weather API with some other data sources to streamline that process. There's been a couple questions about getting these slides, so we will post these slides on SlideShare. We'll also post the recording on YouTube, and we'll send that out to everybody. But there's also additional resources. We have a UPS Ready microsite, which talks about all of the solutions that we offer for UPS, including the rating tools I talked about earlier, Pro. There's a whole set of case studies and short YouTube videos of how to do things like the advanced pack you saw here with Troy. And then on SlideShare, we have a whole set of case studies that are available. These slides will be loaded there as well.
Hey, Brian, one more question that had come in. Earlier in the slides, we were showing a series of different accounting, ERP systems supported. And one of the questions that came in is, my ERP system is not on that list. Does that mean I can't use OzLink? And maybe you can just talk a little bit about the
Yeah, no, we have adapters and connectors built for 25, 30 different hosts. And then we also have what we call generic adapters for web services or ODBC. And we haven't come across a host that we can't integrate with. So what I'd encourage you to do is you can follow up, and then we can just step through and say, yeah, we have experience with that, or here's the technical approach we take to integrate with that system.
Perfect. And the one other question in addition to the slides was, can we get a copy of this recording? So we'll post these online, so we can send folks a link if you want to go back and look at the webinar itself.
Yeah.
I think that's all I had for questions. Yep, looks like I don't have any other new questions. So.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending. I appreciate it. Realize everyone's busy. And if you have any questions that you want to follow up specifically with us, feel free to send us an email at sales@ozdevelopment.com, or you can give us a call at 508-366-1969, and we look forward to talking to you. Thanks very much.